Hello, good morning, good morning, good morning. I hope that everybody is having a great day. Happy Wednesday. Feels kind of weird for me because I've been over on the West Coast. Time's a little different, but it's good to be back. All right, I think it says that we are live now, so we're going to wait just a minute for those who would get on and join us live. Make sure that we got good audio. All right, we got good audio. We have good video. So we'll wait here just a minute. We're going to redo episode 20. And I'll wait a minute here and just explain why. All right, we'll go ahead and get ready to get started here. All right, I've got my number on the screen. If you want to take my number down, if you've not already taken it down, and if for some reason the podcast drops, why don't you go ahead and shoot me a text? I'll start today off with a funny story, and then I'll retell it in the middle just in case others join. But yesterday, I was doing the podcast. I'm in LA. I'm in the hotel, rocking it out, going strong. Did a beautiful 30-minute podcast right to the finish. Picked up the computer, took you guys to the window, showed you the view, closed the computer. Oh, it was awesome. Go back to look to run the tapes, and it only recorded for 6 minutes yesterday. So, did the full podcast yesterday, but you guys only saw 6 minutes of it. Well, not to be defeated, we're going to do the same podcast again because it was a good podcast. So today is episode 20, part 2. The internet must have dropped or something. So if you missed yesterday's episode, I did not do it. I did the full thing, but only 6 minutes of it actually recorded. So if you guys are watching this and you see that it is dropped, if you want to shoot me a text, I will be able to course correct and go back live again. I wasn't paying attention, was rocking and rolling, and just kept going on. We're going to go ahead and get started this morning. Hey, everybody, welcome back. I am the Electrical Code Coach, and this is the Alpha Phase Podcast, where our goal is to become the number one in adding value to you. If there's anything you need from me, you can always email me at electricalcodecoach@gmail.com. Let's get to it. Well, as we briefly touched on yesterday, we did a poll, and I'm going to go ahead and refresh this page. At that time, there were 636 votes. Let's go ahead and do it again. There's now 1,600 votes. Let's go ahead and talk about it. About once a year, I love to get you all stirred up. Love to get you fired up about something. And this is something that seems to bring out the fire in everyone. And this is the ground prong up, ground prong down argument. Now, it's clear here that 64% of you all feel like that we should do the ground prong down. If you're not familiar with it, we're talking about when you install a receptacle, should you put the ground prong up? Should you put the ground prong down? People are very passionate about it. Very. And you'll see some of the funny comments here. And what I did is I asked the question, made this post. The correct receptacle orientation is, and then I said, make your best case in the comments below. Keep it clean. The best case for both sides wins a lifetime membership to the Pro version. I'm going to pick 2 winners today. So we got ground prong up, ground prong down, and I wanted people to kind of see what they had to say. This is where it gets fun. We've got 66 comments. I'm just going to pick some of them. We're going to talk about them, and then I'm curious to see what you think. It's funny, 64% said ground prong down, but the majority of the comments are ground prong up. Ground prong up makes more sense because it doesn't feel or look right, but it doesn't look or feel right. So he says ground prong up makes more sense, but it doesn't look or feel right. Ground prong up because if the plug is inserted fully into the receptacle and something falls in the gap, it has the lowest possibility of becoming energized and the highest chance of opening the breaker. And you're going to find that that is usually the largest defense of the ground prong up, ground prong down, is that if something were to fall in it, let's first that the plug is not fully seated And then in that scenario, if something were to fall into it, that it would be less likely to short, or I don't know, you'll see a bunch of different variations. That's usually the camp for ground prong up. This person says ground prong down, you always want the ground to be the last thing to disconnect. If someone steps or trips over the cord, ground prong up would likely be the first thing to disconnect. That's one thought. Hardly ever see, but ground prong up. That way, if something conductive falls and shorts out on the hot, it won't short out on the hot and neutral. Ground down because appliance cords like the fridge, if you plug it in with a ground up, it will cause the cord to strain. So they're just saying from a manufacturer standpoint, maybe you should do ground prong down. How much are you willing to pay? Going to be a change order, minimum of 4 hours, and those type of receptacles cost more. That's funny. I like that one. That one's pretty good. I'm going to give a thumbs up to that one. If this were significant enough to matter, then NEMA would provide, the right way to do it, I'm sure, is what they go on to say, because we have several comments like that. I do want to, let's go ahead and read this one. If this were significant enough to matter, then NEMA 15, whatever standard should be amended to provide for an insulated plug that doesn't contact the conductor until the insulation is fully plugged in, like a UK plug does. Since they've remained essentially unchanged, it must not be a problem. I like it. The reasoning I was taught, if anything conductive falls across, and that's the biggest ground prong up argument, is that, I've heard it even said like this: if a 2-year-old's carrying a piece of sheet metal and the plug on the wall is not in all the way, and that 2-year-old takes that sheet metal over and throws it over, we don't want the hot and neutral to be hit. And I guess my always question for that one was, why is your 2-year-old got a piece of sheet metal? I've literally had somebody tell me that if a 2-year-old is carrying a piece of sheet metal, I don't know many 2-year-olds carrying a piece of sheet metal. I'm not going to tell you what way to put it, but I will tell you my opinion here in just a few minutes. But let's read some more of these comments. And here's my opinion. Whatever the customer wants. Listen, if you go in and they're all ground prong down, put it ground prong down if you're doing a replacement. If the customer doesn't know, show them both ways. But definitely don't come and insert your opinion, your thought, or the way you want it based off of your desires. If the plans say ground prong up, guess what? I'm putting a ground prong up. If the plans say ground prong down, I'm putting a ground prong down. Or if it doesn't mention, a lot of times you're going to default to ground prong down. But most often there's going to, a lot of times you're doing a replacement or adding a receptacle. Don't come in and have 6 receptacles ground prong up and put one of them ground prong down because you feel like it's the best. Always kind of match your surroundings and see what it looks like. Some people get very heated. This is a trick question that NEC doesn't require. I love this one. 40 years ago, I love this one. 40 years ago, I had passionate opinions about this. Now I'm more passionate about how we are still talking about it. Asking if the customer specifies, follow that. If not, ground down in resi and light commercial. That's what customers think is normal. So you do need to go with public perception, perhaps. I like that. You keep going and you've got a mix. If you want to go read them all, it's a lot of fun. If you don't know where these posts are, you can head over to my YouTube channel. And when you get there, right across the top, you will see the post tab. Let's see if we can get back to it here. I won't show you today, but if you will go to my Electrical Code Coach YouTube channel, there it is, and you will look right across the top here. On your phone, you have to swipe over, and if you click on posts, you can get involved on today's question. You can get involved on this and cast your vote. Often I will put a code question and then a video explaining the answer to that. This one has 2,100 views or engagements. Some of them go higher, some of them are lower. This one is 3,300. So a lot of people get involved. It's kind of cool. So if you want to get involved, you can head over to my YouTube channel, Electrical Code Coach. Make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell button, and then you can get involved with these posts. Let me know what you think, ground prong up or ground prong down. Now let's talk about the code of the day. I was recently doing a 2020 code changes. I'm going to make sure I'm still live. I am. Sorry if you were watching yesterday. I did the full podcast, all 30 minutes, rock star all the way through, but only 6 minutes of it went live to you all. So we're redoing the podcast today. All right. But hope you guys, sorry if that cut out. I didn't know. If you want to text me if something cuts out, you're always welcome to. When we get to 110.8, we're going to be talking about just the general parts of the code. You always go to the scope, and if you go to the scope of 110.8, it's going to let you know that these are some general requirements. Let's go ahead. I'm going to dive over there real quick to the scope of 110. 110.1 says this article covers general requirements for the examination, approval, installation, access to. This is where we get our workspace requirements. And this requirement here, I had never read. There's a lot of just kind of one-liners in 110 of little things that have huge impacts. And this one here, this was actually a change in the 23. They've added some more language, and I did not know that this one existed. I'm going to read you the paraphrase code language, then I'm going to go back and let you know what the new words were in the 2023. Only wiring methods identified as suitable are considered acceptable. What it's talking about is in this code, it's going to lay out the wiring methods that are acceptable to use. These recognized wiring methods may be installed in any building, occupancy, or premise wiring system unless otherwise provided. This is huge. How many times have you had a type of wire or a type of pipe or some type of fitting in your hand and you're like, I wonder if it's allowed in this type of occupancy, right? Is it allowed in this building? Can we install NM cable in a commercial building? Can we install PVC indoors or in this certain situation? What this code is telling you is all the wiring methods that are listed in this book are allowed everywhere, unless other parts of the code restrict it. The NEC is a permissive code, meaning that if it doesn't say you can't, by default you can in almost all cases. It has to specifically say you shall not do something, and shall not, and then shall be permissible, shall be acceptable, or shall not be acceptable. And these are different things that are laid out in, I think, here in Article 110 as well. The important point of this is that everything is allowed everywhere unless other parts of the code restrict it. And a good example is NM cable, like Romex. It's allowed everywhere unless 334 or other parts of the code restrict it. 334.12 or .10, one of the two, lets you know what types of construction you can install NM cable in. So it's allowed to be wired anywhere in the world in any building, or anywhere in the United States, any building or anywhere that has this code, unless 334.10, 334.12 restrict it, either damp location, wet location. That would be a restriction. You can't do it in this certain type of construction. You can't do it over this many floors in a building, depending on what that scenario is. Because as an electrician, you can be out in the field and you're like, man, I'm not positive that this is allowed to be in this space. Well, go look in the code. See if there's somewhere that tells you that it can't. And if you can't find it, then you likely can install that in that location. Very subtle code, but very impactful. Now let's talk about the small business coaching corner. This is probably one of the most important pieces of small business advice that I will ever give you. Either you're likely in one of three camps. You either own your own business now, you want to own your own business one day, or you may be forced to own your own business because of the emerging technologies. And you may work for somebody forever, and that's great too. There's no wrong way to do it. But let's imagine that you were out on your own. I want to talk to you about the art of only doing one job at a time when you first meet a customer. Now I'm going to lay this out, and then I'm going to explain why. I've had this exact same thing happen. Imagine that I come to a customer's house and they called me to do a panel change. I come in and they just fall in love with me. I had a good reference beforehand, and I get there and I'm just on point that day. They feel comfortable. We're joking. I said the right amount of technical stuff, kept it, they were just in love. And they're like, you know what, honey, why don't we go ahead and redo the entire kitchen like we were talking about? I go in there. It's a total kitchen redo. New range, everything in the kitchen's going to be redone. Likely, it's definitely going to require a rough in and a trim out. And it's probably going to be, it was going to end up being like a 2-week process altogether. And then if you add on the panel change, we're going to call it 2.5 weeks for this scenario. Well, these people seem nice, but I have a very tight schedule. Now, at first, you may not, and I'm going to show you how to navigate this carefully. What I did was, and this is what I encourage you to do, it seems exciting, especially when you first get started, that you want to sew up all the work at somebody's house while you're there. Oh, we're going to do the garage. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Next thing you know, you've got several pretty big projects that are kind of separate, distinct things. Let me show you how I handled this and how I always handled it and why. First off, we got the panel change on lock. Everything was good. Then they wanted to add the kitchen. Well, the panel change is about a day of prep, half day of prep, a day of execution, and sometimes a half a day follow-up, depending on the size of it, whether it's a full service, whatever. Got to do smoke alarms, blah, blah, blah. Then they add on this kitchen. I had a really good job in the hand, and then they wanted to add on this job that would have been good money, and I believe we ended up doing it. I'm trying to remember the exact scenario, but let me explain how to handle this. I don't know these customers, and I have a very tight schedule, and I have to be careful who I say yes to because I want very high quality customers so I can deliver my premium product. When you first start out, you take any job that's coming, right? You work for property management companies, you work for house flippers, anybody that rings, every type of occupancy, you take any job that comes in the door. But once you start getting busy, you have to start what I call refining your palate. It's not that you're not willing to work for somebody else, but I'm not going to run around for a property management company doing $70 service calls in very rough conditions when I've got customers that are calling that pay my normal minimum rate, aren't sending me to kind of wild situations. And if you've ever worked for property managers, you know what I'm talking about. So I started refining my palate. First thing I stopped working for was house flippers. They may be great in your area. They were notorious in the area that I was in. I also stopped working on certain type of occupancies. The very first thing to go was overnight emergency work. I just didn't have the time for it because I was so busy during the day. And then I started, if I got 10 phone calls and I can only take 6 of the jobs, well, I got to decide what 4 that I'm not going to take. And this is what you've got to start to become good at, is which of the 6 that you need to take. So let's go back to this scenario. I come to these people. I don't know them. They seem nice. I have the husband and the wife there. Long story short, they wanted to go ahead and book the kitchen as well. And this is where I encourage you to do one job at a time. I said, we're going to hold off on the kitchen, and I want to do the panel change first. I want to make sure that we work well together. And I physically tell them this. I say, hey, I just want to make sure that we work well together. I want to make sure that I deliver that super premium job, and I want to make sure that you pay well and that we work well together. I will physically tell the customer this. And that is the absolute true reason that I do it. What I can't do with my very aggressive, hard to get on schedule is I don't want to book 2.5 weeks worth of work and put it all on one contract. And when I go to work for this customer, they end up being a nightmare, or they don't pay, or they had to reschedule the panel change 3 times because of various reasons. I don't want to book it might only be 2.5 weeks worth of work. You might get 2 months worth of work at a place. They might want to redo the entire basement, and you get day 3 into the job and realize that the husband and wife fight all the time. A big one that you run into in business is the husband wants one thing from you, and maybe he's not the one paying, and she wants one thing from you, and those two are fighting about what they want you to do. If you've ever done construction for any amount of time, you've likely been in that scenario. Or one's paying, one's not, or they're both paying and they just can't agree. And the reason I put a pin in that larger job, and I'm going to show you how to go ahead and book both if you want to, but listen to me. I always only booked that first job. And the reason was I was drowning in work, always. If you deliver super premium service, I assure you, your phone will ring off the hook. With that being said, the reason I do that is because I don't want to get into this long contract with people that I may not want to work with. Not that I'm judging the people, but if you don't pay, I don't want to work for you. If you guys argue all the time, if it's a bad situation, if it just doesn't end up being good, I don't want to be booked for this long amount of work with you and me and you not getting along or it not working well. So I'll come in, do the panel change as long as they pay well. I'm able to schedule correctly. We work well together. Then I will consider doing their other work. Remember, you are the asset. You are the one that has the skills and abilities. but you need to be able to deliver on a level that people will wait for you and do want you to do their work. I know that once I do that panel change, I'm going to do all their work because they're just going to be, you want to be customer obsessed about the customer, and you want people to just be excited and obsessed about what you do, which is deliver on that high level. People, it's like going to your favorite restaurant or your favorite store. People can become addicted in a sense to having you work at their house. And I mean that in a good way. Let's talk about, and that's how I always did it. I don't get roped into a bunch of work. But let's imagine that I felt pretty good about it, or I was low on work. And one thing I don't want you to ever do is to book that second job out of fear. Now, those are two pretty small things. 2 weeks may be nothing to you. You've got more crews. It doesn't matter. But let's imagine that it's 2 months. You don't want to get bogged down, because what'll happen if you do get committed in all this work and it ends up not being good, you'll start getting good phone calls that you know are good because the phone doesn't stop ringing. And you're like, I'm stuck on this job that I don't want to be at, that I maybe, for whatever reason, you don't want to be there. And now I'm getting good calls that I can't take. And you just don't want to set yourself up in that dynamic. Sometimes I'll go into a situation and they'll have a panel change, and the kitchen will say, and they want both contracts right now. They don't care. And so that might start throwing red flags to me. But let's imagine that I want to go ahead and get both contracts on the books. Instead of lumping it all into one contract where I do the panel change and the kitchen, and let's imagine it's a bigger job, I will go ahead and write 2 separate contracts. I'll write a contract for the panel change, and I'll write a contract for the kitchen. For one, I can treat all of the money from the panel change separate. It's a day job, and I get a nice chunk of money. I've had customers say, well, I'm not going to pay you any more until you get the kitchen done. Wait a second, these are 2 separate jobs. So instead of doing that, just set yourself up on the front end with 2 separate contracts. I write a contract for the kitchen, and I write a contract for the panel change. I usually always want to do my panel change first, so if I'm running new circuitry, I've got a nice panel to work in that I installed, and I'm not having to pull those new circuits back out and put them back in the panel once I do the panel change. And there's a couple reasons I write 2 contracts. One of them is that if I work for the customer and they end up being a nightmare, I can usually negotiate my way out of a contract that I haven't started. I get in, I get the panel change. These customers are bonkers, whatever the reason is. And I realize that I don't want to do their kitchen. I can usually negotiate my way out of doing that kitchen. I usually will wait at that point to take even a deposit on the kitchen if there is a deposit involved. And I will wait because I can usually get out of that type of contract. Also, I want to do that because I want the money from the panel change when I'm done. I don't want them, and I've had people try to do this. Of course, I navigated out of it. They will try to hold money up from another project because of another project. They're like, oh no, well, you're not done with the kitchen. We don't know if we want to pay you yet. I'm like, well, these are 2 completely separate jobs. That's why I just learned over the years to write 2 completely separate contracts. So it seems awesome when you go in and they're like, add this, add that. But I've had scenarios where I get in there and I realize pretty quick, people will wow you on an estimate and then end up being the type of people that you end up never wanting to work for again. It's not that we don't love them. We're not devaluing them. They have just proven themselves that they are not a part of your customer base. It can be attitude. It can be the way they deal with it. It can be scheduling. It can be they don't pay, or it's like pulling teeth when you go to get paid and you don't want to be roped into a whole bunch of work with somebody that you just met. Take it a little bit at a time. Never book the second job out of fear. Don't do anything in your business out of fear. There will be another job. There is more work. Somebody's not going to come in and eat your lunch. Listen to me. And there are people hungry, so you have to be competitive. Don't get me wrong, but there will always be another job. I know people that run their entire business out of fear, and you will never make a good decision when you're in that fight or flight mode, especially if you run your business constantly that way. Now let's go ahead and get to know the coach. If I could have any superpower, but it had to run on electricity, what would it be? It's kind of an odd question. So it has to run off electricity. Could be a battery, right? I would say, I don't know if the military has got some pretty cool like brute mech things. Like you wear this giant robotic and it makes it so you can pick up heavy things and it's waterproof, fireproof. if I had to pick something that had to run on electricity, if I could jump in like a suit that was indestructible, I think that would be pretty cool. What's the strangest or funniest thing I've ever seen on a job site? I've seen all kinds of strange things. Painters up 2 or 3 stories on a ladder spraying with a cloud full of paint and up there getting high at the same time, like you can smell it. And this is back in my days where I wouldn't have cared if they did, but I just thought it was funny that they were up there doing that. And they're in this like cloud of paint. You're just wondering if they're just going to fall down and just hit the ground. I think that's some of the, I've seen all kinds of funny things, but let's just call that one for today. If I personally was a type of electrical tool, which one would I be? Oh, I would hands down be a pair of Kleins. Kleins are your everything tool, right? They're your hammer. They're your best friend. They're your cutters. They're your wire strippers. They're your pry bar. I guess I would be a pair of Kleins. Would I rather go a week without coffee or a week without my favorite tool? Well, I would rather go a week without coffee. These, although they provide a lot of entertainment, this is definitely my favorite tool. And you know, the beautiful thing, I hear a lot of complaints in the world. People complain about a lot of things, but we live in one of the greatest times ever. And I just want to just have you think about something this morning. I didn't build the cell phone infrastructure that I run my entire empire, little e, empire out of, right here. I didn't create the roads and the infrastructure to move the products that I move and to be able to do the things that I do. We live on the back of so many men and women that have built this infrastructure that we live on. So my number one tool, my number one money-making tool is definitely my phone. Not only for voice, but for text, for video, for content creation, for letting people in and out of the website. So highly recommend that, you know, if you, I'm curious to see what yours was. First off, let me say, if you want to drop down in the comments below if you would rather go a week without coffee or without your favorite tool, and let me know what your favorite tool is. But a little bit of gratitude this morning for all of the infrastructure that we have. I think about it often. You know, I can hop in my truck and run any business I want, and I didn't pave any of those roads. So just something to think about this morning. If I could wire my dream shop with unlimited gear, what would be the first thing I would install? Well, I'll be honest with you. My brother probably has a pretty cool vacuum system for sawdust. Of course, I'd put a generator, welder, all that stuff. But I would like to have, he's got it wherever, when he saws, all of that sawdust gets immediately sucked over and put in a vacuum. There's no sawdust in the air. There's no sawdust on the shop. It just sucks it right out of there. That would probably be one of the first things that I would install. I want to give a shout out to the sponsor of today's video. It's StackMax. If you've not picked up one of these, head over to stackmax.com. In my opinion, it's the number one solution for stacking, racking, and storing and pulling wire. Head over to stackmax.com and check out StackMax. Let's get to it. Let's go ahead and take a look at the code. This one's a little bit different. We're not going to do a code question, but we're just going to kind of do a code video, and it's how to calculate the minimum number of 20 amp branch circuits and also your general branch circuits. Let's get to it. Hey everyone, welcome back. I am the Electrical Code Coach. In this video, we're going to cover how to calculate your general circuit calculations. Now, these type questions fall into 2 different scenarios. One, they're going to ask you the minimum required 20 amp branch circuits. And then the other one that looks almost identical is when they ask you the minimum required general branch circuits for a specific size home. We're going to look at these piece by piece, and we're going to break them down one at a time. At a minimum, how many 20 amp branch circuits are required for a dwelling unit? Now, this is asking a very specific question. There is a code minimum of 20 amp branch circuits that are required in every dwelling unit. The correct answer to this is 5. It's going to include our 2 small appliance circuits, our bathroom circuit, our laundry circuit, and our garage circuit. Now, this is not to be confused with the type questions that are asking about general or lighting or receptacle circuits. These are the code minimum of the required 20 amp branch circuits in a dwelling. And the answer is 5. Great job. At a minimum, how many 20 amp general branch circuits are required for a 2,700 square foot home? Now, your question may not say general, it may say for lighting and receptacles. You can keep an eye out for that. But usually if they give you the square feet, that's going to be the red flag for me, that I'm calculating the general branch circuits. So how we're going to do this one, it's very simple. We're going to do it one step at a time. The first step is to take our 2,700 square feet and multiply it by 3 VAs per square foot, like we've learned previously in the program. That's going to end up with 8,100 VAs. Now what we have to do, because this is our general lighting, those are all going to be 120 volt circuits. So I'm going to take that 8,100 and divide it by that 120 volts. And that's going to give us 67.5 amps. I'm converting it over to amps. Then we're going to take that and divide it by whatever size branch circuit that we are going to be installing. In this case, they want to run 20 amp circuits, and that's okay. Here we go. We take our 67.5 divided by 20. That lets you know at a minimum for this home, you must have 3.375 circuits. And we're always going to round up because you can't have a piece of a circuit. So the correct answer would be 4 for this home. Now, these are not to be confused with the 5 required ones. This is if someone wanted to continue to wire their home for their general lighting and receptacles with 12 gauge wire. They'd be allowed to put them on 20 amp circuits at that point, and this is how we would calculate it. Now let's do a 15 amp version. At a minimum, how many 15 amp general branch circuits are required for a 2,700 square foot home? The first thing we're going to do is take our 2,700 and multiply it by 3 VAs per square foot. Then we're going to take that and divide it by 120, which is our circuit voltage. Then we take that remainder there and divide it by the size circuit, and in this case, it's 15 amps. It's going to equal 4.5, and we're going to always round up to 5. Now, there are other ways to calculate this, but for me, this is the simplest and one that works every time. And that's what I always want to be able to give to you. One, to me, that is the simplest and one that works every single time. You can head over to... All right, y'all, that was the little electrical lesson of the day. I hope that you enjoyed it. Just to recap, we have 5 required 20 amp circuits. If there's an attached garage, it would be the 2 small appliance, the 1 laundry, the 1 bathroom, and the 1 garage. And then if you want to calculate how many number of general lighting circuits a home needs, you would do the calculation that I just taught you. One thing I want you to think about is that, and the question of the day over on our YouTube channel was, on a 15 amp circuit, is the maximum number of receptacles you can have in residential 10, meaning that there's a count. And there are commercial restrictions, but there are no residential restrictions. So let's imagine in this house that I had these 5 circuits. I could technically put every single room in the house except for one on one of those circuits, which wouldn't make any sense, but I could legally do it as far as receptacles. Then I could take the last room and run the other 4 circuits to that room and have each receptacle be on one and still satisfy code. That would be very silly and very foolish, but you could legally do it. Now let's head to Mindset University and round out the day. We do Mindset University because it doesn't matter how great of a player you are, how strong you are, how much of a go-getter you are. If you've got a bad attitude or you don't have the right mindset, you will be on the bench of life. And today I want to talk to you about pushing when you don't feel like it, and a way to set up a filter that will help you from destroying all the good things in your life on those days when you don't feel it, or leaving something too early. Listen, we are a feeling type creature. Boy, am I thankful that I can feel when things are hot so I don't burn myself. I'm glad that I have emotions of sadness and happy and joy and excitement and drive. If I didn't have these, I don't think we'd be able to function. We feel, and thoughts, inputs, background, there's a lot of things that create these feelings. A lot of times, though, in our hustle culture, which you hear me say the word grind all the time, but the word grind is starting to have like a negative connotation. And the reason I say that when I came up, grind was a good thing. But now the way that we kind of turn into this hustle culture, the word grind can actually be negative. But there are days that I don't feel like getting after it. And a lot of times in this hustle culture, it's because we're tired. We're physically overcommitted. We go to bed too late. We wake up too early. We're not eating the right food a lot of time. And we just find ourselves tired, hungry, hangry. And one thing that we've not done well is we've not done well at taking off. Even on our days off, we're working a little bit, or we've got our mind on work, or we've been so toxic at work the entire week that we don't really get that good rest. And we often will get ourselves in a season. And it's sometimes because we are playing when we should be working, and that causes stress, and we get to where we're not enjoying what we're doing, or we are working when we should be playing, right? We're taking the phone out to the beach. We're still doing the stuff. We've got our mind and we never let go of it. And we can get in these seasons where we just don't feel it, where we're not feeling what we're doing, the team we're on, the job we're at. And I encourage you, the filter that I want to set up, and then we're going to talk about pushing even when you don't feel it. The filter I want you to set up is to not make any big decisions when you're in that zone. How many times are we just looking for a feeling change so we'll quit something? We'll look for a feeling change so we'll reduce our commitment in something. But what I want to encourage you today is to set up a filter that you don't make any decisions like that when you're not feeling it. Do we make good decisions, yes or no, when we're not feeling it? When we're not enjoying it, when it feels like it's not what we signed up for, when it's turned into what we've not signed up for, and then we start making decisions, and they're usually not rooted in facts, they're usually rooted in feelings. Now, I want to encourage you today to just set up a filter that you just set up a rule in your life that you just don't make those decisions. Look back at all the times when you weren't feeling it and you made a decision, and tell me how many of those decisions were high quality and how many of them that you wish you would have made a different decision. But you were just looking for a quick feeling change, usually because you're overexhausted, overcommitted, you've not been resting properly, you're playing when you should have been working, or you're working when you should have been playing, and you get yourself in this funk. Now I want to encourage you to push when you don't feel it. First off, don't make any big decisions when you don't feel it. Second off, if you signed up for it, that didn't mean that I'm going to sign up for it on the days that I feel like it. If you signed up for marriage, you got to do it when you don't feel it. If you signed up for work, you got to do it when you don't. Did you sign up to be a dad or a mom? You got to do it when you don't feel it. Sometimes you just got to push. You got to push through it. You know the stuff. Sometimes you're just doing the motions. Sometimes you are just getting through the day and you're not getting from it. Like let's be honest with each other. We want to have a rich, dynamic life 24/7, but it's not always that way. Sometimes you just got to do the stuff. And you owe it to those who you've committed to do it even when you don't feel it. You don't always have to feel that 100% warm and fuzzy feeling about the job or about the person or about whatever. But if you signed up to do it, you've got an obligation. And what happens is we get in this cycle of we don't feel it, so we don't perform for whatever reason, and that eats at our subconscious and it eats at us. And then it cycles back. We don't feel it even more. I'm feeling less and less in love with this job because I didn't feel it. I didn't give it my all. My body and my mind knows that I didn't give it my all. And I get in this cycle of not feeling it, not performing, not feeling it, not performing. Then I'm not getting the proper rest. Then I'm not getting and we just get in these seasons. And if you've never been there, I'm happy for you. But the majority of us listening to this podcast right now, we have been in these seasons many times. And usually we'll make rash decisions, or we'll back out of a commitment, or we'll quit a job, or we'll whatever that looks like. Now listen, there's no greater feeling than when you do leave something. One of my favorite Bible quotes says, better is the end of a thing than its beginning. It's nice sometimes to leave a job, right? When you've done it the right way and you put in your 2 weeks, and even if it was a little toxic or whatever, you did the class move, you did the right thing. Yes, it feels great to get that brick off your neck sometimes, but it only feels good for a day, right? And then you're like, oh, I got to go back to work. I got to get to it. But what we're often looking for when we make big decisions when we're not feeling it is we're just looking for some temporary relief. But I'm going to let you in on kind of a little news flash. Did you know that you can just get away from a situation for a little while? You can just shut the social media off for a week. You can turn the phone off for a night. You can take a couple days off at work, even if everybody does get mad. You can keep yourself from losing the job, losing the relationship, losing the friendship, losing your mind by just getting away from it for a little while. It's amazing how when you're not feeling it, if you'll just get away from it and get some perspective, take a walk, take a nap, take a hike, it feels like you're going to lose it all just by taking the break. But a lot of times if you don't take the break, you just might lose it all. So I encourage you, if you signed up, pull your pants up, pull your big boy, big girl pants up, push even when you don't feel it. Then you don't always have to have that warm and fuzzy feeling, but if you've committed to it, go strong, do what you're supposed to do. And if you will continually do what you know inside that you're supposed to do and you signed up for, you will get out of that feeling and you'll recycle back into a strong push season. I am the Electrical Code Coach, and my bargain is that these videos will add value to you and you will in turn add value to others. This is the Alpha Phase podcast, but there is one who is the alpha of alphas, and his name is Jesus. And he's the one that gives me the strength, the power, the ability, the diligence, and the grit to push when I don't feel it. And he can do the same for you. I am the Electrical Code Coach. If you need anything from me, just let me know. Let's get to it.